Bibliophiles of the internet, my name's Adriana, and today I'm back to give you 5 reasons to read Madeline Miller's latest book, Circe. This is another of Miller's trademark mythological overhauls. It's a slow-boiling, intimate character study about the title character, Circe, who is daughter of Helios, god of the sun. In her early life, she's very much overlooked and unloved. Her parents and siblings find her awful to look at, and they tell her the very sound of her voice grates their souls, and because she's not prophesied to be great or remarkable, they deem her existence as worthless. Eventually, Circe discovers that she's a witch. She can see the potential in raw ingredients around her and coax them into creating powerful reactions. And while she's experimenting with this newfound skill, she accidentally creates some equally powerful monsters. Ultimately, her father banishes her to a remote island known as Ayaya in the human world, where she encounters all manner of visitors, divine and human alike. When she's free of her family and their insistence upon her failure, she's finally able to carve out a life for herself. Reason number 1 why you should read this incredible book. There's no single, definitive, overarching plot, and that's not in any way a bad thing. The story is very different from the Song of Achilles, which was about the machinations of war, tragic romance, attempting to outrun fate, but that same writing style, that attention to metaphor, that narrative closeness is still very much evident in this book. And I enjoy that the story is told in a slow, linear fashion where the instances of conflict are seen as a string of encounters rather than the result of one fixed conflict. It makes the narrative feel very open. I think the story is told in a linear way consistently from beginning to end as an homage to the original texts. That's something Miller does extremely well. You see the inspiration from classic Greek mythology in the structure and the cadence, but she introduces new energy and new life to these ancient texts. She's able to maintain their integrity, but calls forth a new kind of intimacy and also a deeper level of empathy for these unsung characters. Another reason I appreciate this book's structure is because it's reflective of life itself. We build upon and grow from the encounters we have with others. Meaningful encounters change the way we act and react, change the way we see the world or ourselves. That's why I think it's so powerful to see Circe gradually growing as a person, as a witch, as a lover, as a parent, to see the way she builds upon each interaction she has. Number 2. In this book, Miller attempts to retroactively restore dignity to feminine characters in myth, and she succeeds. I love that Madeline Miller takes characters who have only ever been fixed in myth as secondary and transforms them into central characters in their own narrative. This goes back to the structure in a way because no one would ever think of Circe as a driving force. Like I said, there's no single conflict that holds her life together the way Patroclus was haunted by the Trojan War and Achilles' impending fate. It's ambitious and daunting to take Circe's experiences, her personhood, and string it into an entire book, but that's also the beauty of it. You see how many people and gods come across Circe's island who touch her life in some way, but we've never seen these interactions from Circe's perspective. She's always the footnote in someone else's myth, but here that idea has been completely flipped. As I said, you have this thread of Circe trying to come into her own, and you see all these incredible mythological figures making an appearance in her life and not the other way around. And Circe, while uncertain, while fearful and accustomed to pain and loss, is not weak. Everything she does, everything she takes on is of her own accord, and she refuses to submit to the will of men, which again is something we've never really seen before in a mythological text. Miller actually wrote a fantastic article about encountering sexism and misogyny in mythology and in academia as a scholar of classics, and how she's wanted to restore Circe's dignity in a sense for years. And sometimes dignity boils down to really sitting with a person, seeing that they're whole and imperfect, and recognizing that everything they've been through matters. That's why I think this story definitely succeeds in doing that. Also, if you're interested, I will of course link that article down below. Number 3, the story is really about discovering your own agency and reclaiming control over your own narrative. Another powerful benefit of following Circe's life from the beginning is getting to see how much she changes. Before her exile, she's subjected to her family's disdain. She's seen as a burden, as a blight on her family's name, so she's very meek and fearful as a result. She doesn't know much of the world, she does as she's told, she accepts her punishment as inevitable and goes where her father banishes her without complaint. By the end, she's endured so much. She's tired of accepting that the world is going to rip away the things she loves, that all she has to look forward to is the loss of everyone she cares about. She's done being her father's pawn, being seen as expendable, and it's really incredible to witness. That's what's so great about her being a witch. It gives her a kind of control, a way to manipulate the world around her and her circumstances. As the story goes on, she realizes that she doesn't have to sit around and wait for the next awful thing to happen. She can protect herself. She can prevent unwanted visitors, and if she doesn't know how to do something, she can learn. It's a testament to how we can break the mold, how we can leave behind what is expected of us. When Circe realizes she has a choice, that she can atone for her mistakes and become something else besides the burden she was cast as, she says, "That was only a shape I had been poured into. I did not have to keep it." Number 4, the story asks what it means to have a meaningful existence. There's a constant discussion of the infinite versus the finite. In the opening chapters, there's a seed that's planted with Prometheus, who was cruelly punished by Zeus for stealing fire and giving it to humans. Circe is fascinated by this choice because Prometheus's name literally means forethought, meaning he has premonitions. He's able to see things before they take place. So he knowingly gave fire to humans, knowing he would be punished for it and knowing exactly what that punishment would entail. This is a fate Circe keeps close throughout her entire life, and she keeps returning to it. I think she has that same urge in herself to reach for things that are finite, like humans, and she wonders why that is. Why do we love others knowing that one day they'll leave us or they'll be gone? Why do we try to claim things that won't last forever? Why do we stake so much of ourselves in things that are temporary, things that have limits? It's especially fascinating to think about in relation to Circe and other immortals who have no concept of death, whose time on this earth is conceivably endless. When that's your mindset, how do you fathom the here and the now? How do you organize your experiences? So as an immortal, as someone who's constantly facing loss, Circe is desperate to cling to any form of love or bright light that comes her way. And even though she knows things will end, most likely not in her favor, her love is reckless and fierce. There's something so powerful about someone who keeps reaching, who keeps trying, and who decides for herself what has meaning and what does not. And number 5, the story truly validates all different forms of love. As I just said, Circe loves often and she loves fiercely. It doesn't always work out. Sometimes people discard her without a thought or betray her trust, but there's no shortage of love in her life. She is a daughter, a sibling, a friend, a lover, a parent, a witch, and above all, she is undyingly dedicated and loyal, sometimes to a fault. I appreciate that this story isn't centered on romantic love. It's about what Circe wants and the life she's trying to make for herself, a life where she can breathe freely and be proud of the witch she is. Along the way, she experiences all different types of love, platonic, familial, romantic, sexual, but I think it's important to note that she doesn't go after these things because they're convenient, but because they're experiences she wants. You see how in the beginning she thought she needed a man's love to be seen or to feel important, but then she realizes that void can be filled with so many different kinds of love, most importantly, self-love. It's really great to see a woman who is alone but who isn't lonely, or who does experience loneliness from time to time but realizes that might be a symptom of missing something else. As I said, Circe loves often and she tries to keep the things she loves close to her just because so much has been taken away as matter of course. Sometimes she's successful, sometimes she's not, but each endeavor is deemed as equally lasting, impactful, and important. Ultimately, love or lack thereof is what shapes the course of her life more than anything else, and what we define as love changes as often as life itself. Being able to read something new from Madeline Miller after all these years was a really incredible, rewarding experience. You don't need to have read the Song of Achilles to read this one, and you don't even need a cursory knowledge of Greek myth to enjoy it, because Madeline Miller will take care of you and fill you in along the way, so I feel comfortable saying I definitely recommend this book. So those were just a handful of my thoughts on Circe by Madeline Miller. If you've read this book or her previous book, please feel free to drop by the comments and discuss. But that's everything I had for this review today. Thank you so much for watching this video. I really hope that you enjoyed it, and I will catch you on the flip side of the page.